Welcome back, manhwa lovers. We are back again with an exciting adventure in the manhwa titled The Regressed Son of a Duke is an Assassin. On this occasion, we will be discussing from Chapter 5 to Chapter 8. Let's continue this adventure. The long-awaited moment has finally arrived. Cyan must depart for the battlefield after the grace period promised by Duke, her own father. However, Cyan remains steadfast and ready to face the challenges that lie ahead. The horse-drawn carriage carrying Cyan speeds along like a gust of wind, heading toward the predetermined destination. Eventually, the carriage comes to a halt precisely at Cyan's destination. This place will silently witness the struggle she is about to endure. Cyan steps down from the carriage, surprised by how quickly time has passed. Unbeknownst to her, she has already arrived at the battlefield where her fate will be decided. After alighting from the carriage, Cyan makes her way to where Duke stands. She greets Duke, and he poses a crucial question to her. "Are you still determined to go to the battlefield? If you wish to retreat now, I won't stop you," Duke says solemnly. He wants to ensure that Cyan is truly prepared and has a strong intention to fight. Cyan responds with a resolute and confident voice. "My heart will not turn away from this battlefield." Her answer reflects unwavering determination and courage. Upon hearing Cyan's response, Duke instructs Yulin to unroll an ancient and mysterious scroll he holds in his hands. Yulin steps forward, carefully unfurling the scroll. Everyone in the vicinity holds their breath, waiting in anticipation. "A magic scroll?" Cyan murmurs to herself. She feels curious and puzzled, wondering what kind of demon Yulin intends to summon. Cyan continues to speculate about the nature of the entity Yulin is about to call forth. "Sure, here is the text without the numbers." Yulin, with a concentrated movement, throws the magic scroll into the air while reciting a spell with a loud and clear voice. The air instantly becomes tense, as if waiting for something big to happen. Suddenly, a demon appears from the magic scroll, emerging with a terrifying aura. The demon seems to bring darkness and chaos. The demon has long and very sharp claws, reflecting the strength and ferocity it possesses. Every move it makes shows a real threat. The demon turns out to be a hellhound, appearing right in front of Cyan. Hellhound, a creature from another world known for its ferocity. Hellhound is the lowest-ranked demonic beast from Lamia Valley. The knights must have difficulty preparing for this test. It turns out that Duke, Cyan's father, wants to test Cyan's courage and ability to face the demon before going to war. The knights are also on guard, ready to face any possibilities that may occur. They also have a duty to protect Cyan, ensuring that he remains safe. Cyan, with a calm face, observes the knights behind him. They are ready to protect him in case of danger, and Cyan feels more at ease with their presence. "You must be responsible for every action you take, so prove how strong your determination is by passing this test and showing it to us." That's Duke's request to Cyan. Duke wants Cyan to prove his bravery and strong determination. Yulin, who has been silent all this time, remembers Cyan asking him for a sparring match. He feels surprised and at the same time curious about Cyan's courage. "Did you just say that you want a duel with me?" Yulin still can't believe if Cyan wants to spar with him. He feels curious and at the same time challenged by Cyan's request. "There are only 3 days left until the deadline of my promise with my father. I can't just keep swinging my sword in the air, right?" Cyan explained why he wanted to train with Yulin. He wanted to experience a real fight. "I also want to experience a real fight. Please help me, okay?" Cyan asked Yulin for help with a hopeful tone. He wanted to get real combat training. For a duel, someone your age might be young Master Kranz. Yulin suggested this duel training with Kranz, who is the same age as Cyan, but "I'm not sure, but he always runs away from me every time he sees me, so it's really troublesome," Cyan expressed with an annoyed tone. Kranz is always scared when he comes across Cyan, making him feel frustrated. Hearing that, Yulin fell silent. He knew the real incident about Kranz and felt sympathy. Finally, after thinking for a moment, Yulin agreed to duel with Cyan. Cyan was very happy to hear that. His face shone with enthusiasm. "I will only fight you using my sword sheath. I will only focus on defending, so attack me as you please." Yulin didn't use a sword, but only used his sword sheath to fight Cyan, giving Cyan the opportunity to attack. Cyan thanked Yulin. But he still had one more request. He looked serious and determined. Whatever happens from now on, don't tell it to my father. And this is in order. Cyan's request surprised Yulkin, but he nodded in understanding. Even so, Yulkin was still confused by Cyan. He was curious about what Cyan was really thinking. Cyan, with his sharp gaze, began to attack Yulkin. Every move he made was full of certainty and strength. However, Cyan's attack was easily parried by Yulkin. Yulkin looked calm and controlled. "It's heavy! I can't believe this! It's an attack from a 10-year-old child!" Yulkin couldn't believe if Cyan, who was still young, had great strength and high technique in swordsmanship. Yulkin found it difficult to see Cyan's movements that were so fast. He had to work hard to anticipate it. He was also very careful with Cyan's attacks. He knew that every attack Cyan made had a great potential to hurt him, and sure enough, Cyan's movements got faster every time he wanted to launch an attack. His speed almost exceeded the limits of ordinary human ability. Cyan, who was so fast, was already on top to prepare to attack Yulkin. He looked like an eagle ready to pounce on its prey. With the knowledge he possessed, Yulkin began to seriously face Cyan. He knew that he should not underestimate his opponent. With the slash made by Cyan, luckily Yulkin was still able to withstand the slash. He looked panting but still held on. Not only that, Cyan kept attacking Yulkin, and Yulkin also held up well. Their fight looked fierce and passionate. Cyan, with a strong intention to end this training soon, is preparing to launch his final strike. He feels adrenaline flowing quickly in his body. He strikes with full strength, but Yulkin manages to withstand his attack, even though he seems to be starting to get overwhelmed. Their fight seems to be getting more intense. Cyan stops attacking Yulkin and says in a low tone, "As expected, I still can't beat you." He looks a bit disappointed but remains calm. Then, Cyan does not forget to thank Yulkin for allowing him to duel with him today. He feels very grateful and appreciates this opportunity. Yulkin still can't believe Cyan's development. Cyan, whom he knew was very weak, has now grown very rapidly, and his swordsmanship is very skillful. If the hunch I feel is correct, then now the young master can surely overcome any test that comes to him, Yulkin muttered in his heart. He feels confident in Cyan's abilities. The ferocious demon seems to really want to attack Cyan. Cyan looks very careful and ready to face the attack from the demon. With a quick movement, the demon jumps to attack Cyan. The air suddenly becomes tense and full of pressure. Cyan has been waiting for the demon to attack him. He looks calm and ready to face the attack. The movement of the demon is very fast, and the demon releases its sharp fangs and claws. Every movement looks scary and full of threats. Its eyes are also very scary, as if they could see into someone's soul. However, the demon's attack was easily parried by Cyan. He looks calm and controlled. With my current strength, fighting against a monster is still too much. I need to end this fight as soon as possible, Cyan revealed in a determined tone. I will kill it with this attack. Cyan seemed very confident in wanting to finish off the monster on this occasion. Cyan prepared to take a stance. He looked very focused and concentrated. When the monster attacked him, Cyan easily slashed the monster's neck. His movements looked fast and accurate. The monster was thrown off, and Cyan also stabbed his sword into the monster. He looked very satisfied with his attack. Everyone was amazed at Cyan's strength. For a 10-year-old child, he looked very strong and brave. Duke looked very impressed with Cyan. He looked proud and happy to see his son's development. It's a shame. This much blood could fill several bottles, Cyan revealed. He wanted to bring the monster's blood, but it seemed he couldn't. If I do something like that here, they will definitely think I'm crazy, Cyan muttered in his heart. He seemed a little worried about other people's reactions. Duke, who was impressed, gave Cyan a round of applause. He looked very proud and happy. Well then, see you on the battlefield, Duke said in a hopeful tone. Cyan thanked his father for giving him permission to go to the battlefield. He seemed very grateful and appreciated his father's decision. Then, the demonic sword seemed to call Cyan. Its voice seemed scary and full of mystery. Do I look like a kitchen knife to you? Said the demonic sword. No, of course you are a demonic sword. Why do you say that? Cyan replied to the demonic sword. He seemed a little confused by the demonic sword's question. "So use me. I need blood to increase my strength." The demonic sword seemed a little angry with Cyan. He seemed very eager to drink blood. "Please, let me drink just a sip." The demonic sword seemed very eager to drink the monster's blood. He seemed very hungry and thirsty. "Don't worry," Cyan said in a calming tone. He seemed very confident and calm. "Because soon, I will use you for my personal satisfaction. Just wait." Cyan seemed very confident and determined. "When that happens, you have to wake me up immediately." Cyan seemed very serious and determined. "When that happens, you have to wake me up immediately." Cyan looked very serious and determined. During the battle against the ogres from the northwest began attacking fiercely, brandishing their large and terrifying weapons. They emitted roars that shook the soul, filling the air with a deadly aura of ferocity. The warning bell rang as a signal to quickly form a defensive line, calling every warrior to prepare themselves in tight protection. The sound of the bell echoed across the battlefield, warning everyone present that danger was imminent. Duke firmly ordered that the ogres should not be allowed to escape alive, deciding that they must be captured and face appropriate punishment. His face radiated unwavering determination, emphasizing that there would be no mercy for enemies who had caused so much suffering. The knights began performing the restraint of salvation, an ancient mantra believed to bind the ogres with mystical power, restricting their wild movements. They chanted ancient words with unwavering confidence, emitting magical energy that formed invisible bonds around the ogres. As the knights did this, a light emerged, forming a symbol that radiated powerful magical energy. The light shone brightly, filling the sky with captivating colors, creating an enchanting atmosphere amidst the chaos of war. The symbol appeared beneath the ogres, enveloping them with an aura that restricted their freedom of movement. Like an unseen net, the symbol encircled the ogres, binding them tightly. Next, magical threads appeared around the symbol, weaving the ogres into invisible yet strong shackles. These threads vibrated with magical power, reinforcing the bonds that held the ogres in a state they could not easily escape from. With the ogres securely bound, Duke then commanded the knights to attack them with all their might. His voice echoed amid the tumult of battle, giving the signal for the warriors to launch their assault with unwavering determination. The knights began striking down the ogres one by one, defending their territory with bravery and resolute determination. They swung their swords skillfully, felling their enemies with unshakable courage. The ogres rebelled, attempting to break free from the tether that bound them, moving their bodies against the magical control that restrained them. The knights showed no mercy, dispatching the ogres mercilessly. They slashed with their gleaming swords under the scorching sun, ensuring that no enemy could escape their punishment. Cyan observed closely, and Emily, who accompanied Cyan, was half terrified, her eyes fixed on every movement in the battle with a heart full of tension. Emily asked Cyan, "Why do you want to go to this place? Aren't you afraid?" Cyan ignored Emily's question, focusing on her duty without being swayed by doubt or fear. "Who would have thought I'd return here? I feel nostalgic. As usual, it's like hell," Cyan murmured in her heart, allowing her emotions to flow amidst the chaos of battle. Duke asked Cyan, "How does it feel to be on the front line, Cyan?" Cyan replied, "I'm somewhat nervous," acknowledging her feelings without hiding the tension she felt in this challenging situation. "As you can see, you'll never know when you'll die in this place, so never let your guard down." That was Duke's message to Cyan, reflecting the wisdom inherited from years of experience on the battlefield. "Okay, I'll remember that, Father," Cyan replied with a smile, accepting Duke's advice with respect and determination. "In the front lines, situations like this are quite common. Usually there are 3 to 4 battles per day, and each battle has its own detailed manual response," Cyan explained to Emily, revealing the routine that had become part of her life as a knight. "With skilled advanced knights at the core, we handle all the monsters attempting to breach the front lines," added Cyan, emphasizing the importance of expertise and coordination in safeguarding their territory from the continuous threat of monsters. Cyan's rest tent was guarded by several knights under the command of her father, Duke, enforcing discipline and security around the area responsibly. Positioned at the very back, Cyan's tent was in the safest location, away from the central battlefront, providing a quiet place for rest and recovery. With disciplined guards present, Cyan wouldn't even have a chance to feed Karam, her sword. She paused momentarily, unsure whether to wait until dinner to give blood to her blade. Emily was extremely fearful in the battlefield, to the point where she covered herself with a blanket, even though her current tent was the safest spot in the war zone. "Didn't your father tell us that we'll never know when and where we'll die?" Emily's voice trembled with fear that still lingered in her mind. Irritated by Emily's behavior, Cyan instructed her to pack up and go home, hoping to calm the situation. However, Emily refused to leave, feeling that Cyan couldn't manage without her presence. "With monsters everywhere, if I run away, who will take care of you, young master?" Emily's tone was firm, trying to make Cyan realize her importance. Later, Emily stepped out of the tent to inform Cyan to have dinner, but Cyan's request for a cloak was ignored. Cyan fell silent, contemplating her assistant's behavior, feeling a mix of disappointment and gratitude for Emily's concern. Cyan was growing uncomfortable with Emily's behavior, sensing that it increasingly disrupted her peace amidst the harsh and unpredictable battlefield. As night fell, Cyan crafted a doll resembling herself and carefully placed it on her bed, hoping to deceive Emily into not noticing her departure. After covering the doll with a blanket, Cyan created a convincing illusion to deceive Emily. Cyan prepared to leave the tent, but Emily woke up, asking if Cyan wanted to train even in this place. "Yes. Did I wake you?" Cyan continued calmly. "You're diligent. Your father would be proud of you if he knew." Emily mumbled half awake, offering faint praise in the darkness of the night. Cyan didn't want to linger in conversation with Emily, desiring the opportunity to leave without further questions. Before exiting the tent, Cyan instructed Emily to follow her orders, asserting her authority as a knight. Cyan hurried, aware that nighttime guard duty at the front lines was usually reinforced, and every second counted. "So if I don't move now, it'll be difficult to move freely later." Cyan swiftly employed the third movement technique, thick fog's descent, leaping down the cliff. "If I recall correctly, there should be numerous monsters in this place. This is the perfect opportunity to use Karam, isn't it?" "Right, Karam?" The demonic sword. Karam began sensing a strong scent of blood in that location. "Master! I can't contain myself! Quickly, let me strike something!" exclaimed Karam, Cyan's sword. The ferocious monsters started attacking Cyan. "Very well, Karam. We'll do as you wish." Cyan swung Karam toward the approaching monsters. With a sharp gaze, Cyan closely observed the monsters' movements. Then, using the rushing fogstorm technique, Cyan accelerated her movements to strike the monsters. Finally, Cyan thrust a bamboo stake into the monster's neck. She collected the monster's blood in a large glass, watching the dark red fluid flow slowly into a container made of shimmering crystal under the dim light of night. Cyan immediately drank the monster's blood, swallowing each drop rapidly, feeling the energy invigorate her strength with intensity coursing through every fiber of her being. Cyan relished the blood, for she had already been influenced by Karam's strong desire for monster blood, awakening the same thirst within her. Since there are still many monsters, Cyan is now eager to continue her training. "How long do you think it will take for us to become strong by eliminating these beasts?" Karam's voice overflowed with fervor. "Don't worry, the night won't pass quickly, because there are so many monsters," Cyan replied, focused on their goal of gathering strength from the ongoing battle. Karam and Cyan grew even more excited, viewing the monsters as easy prey for Cyan, propelling them forward in this challenging fight. Then, on a hillside, a convoy of horse-drawn carriages was escorted by knights, cutting through the dark night with their dimly lit lanterns. Inside one of the carriages was a princess heading to the battlefield, bearing the great responsibility of being a member of the royal family. "I think the front lines are too dangerous. What if we just turn back?" said the princess's servant, attempting to protect her from the dangers lurking on the battlefield. However, the princess strongly disagreed with her servant's treatment, refusing to be seen as a child. I am the Imperial Palace Princess. How many times do I have to tell you that I am bound by duty to assist my father on his journey? I am truly angry if you bring this up again, the princess declared, with a slightly elevated tone, asserting her maturity and determination to fulfill her responsibilities as a member of the royal family. The servant could only nod and bow her head, accepting the princess's instructions and decisions without much comment. Oh, I remember now. There's news that the youngest son of the Vert family is at the front lines. He should be around your age, the servant said, trying to engage the princess in conversation. Duke Vert brought his youngest son? The princess was slightly surprised by the information provided by her servant, questioning the presence of Duke Vert's son on the battlefield. Actually, Duke didn't want to bring him. The boy volunteered himself. Since you're around the same age, you should try to get acquainted, the servant continued, explaining the background of Cyan's presence on the battlefield. As if I care about such trivial matters. Forget it. I want to rest for a while. The princess seemed curious but embarrassed to admit her curiosity, attempting to conceal her interest in the news about Cyan. Hearing the princess's words, the servant could only agree, knowing that the princess wanted to rest without much debate. After a moment of silence, the princess asked for the name of Duke's son. The servant quickly replied, "His name is Cyan. I'm quite sure he's called Cyan Vert." The princess began recalling the person named Cyan, trying to understand Cyan's presence on the battlefield. Cyan Vert, huh? The princess is starting to remember who Cyan Vert is, she murmured to herself, thinking about the individual she might encounter on the battlefield. The story returns to the battlefield in Lamea Valley. A female monster resembling a bird with brown feathers is visible. She experiences excruciating pain due to the sword strike from Duke Vert. The strike lands precisely on her neck and abdomen. Standing tall amidst the fluttering monster feathers, Duke, gripping his sword, appears highly enthusiastic in this battlefield. He shouts loudly, commanding his soldiers to check on everyone's well-being. All his soldiers report that they are fine. Duke and his warriors easily defeat the monsters. This is evident from the lifeless eagle monster. They decide to return to their camp. However, one thing troubles Duke's mind as he looks back. He seems perplexed. He observes that Cyan has repeatedly defeated bird-shaped monsters. Cyan has just pulled his sword out of a monster's body while stepping on its corpse. Cyan, who fights alongside them, casually steps on the monster's body and sheathes his sword. Behind Cyan, the other soldiers always stand guard, protecting him. Duke then asks Cyan, "How are you after being on the front lines?" Hearing Duke's words, Cyan swiftly turns toward him, sharp eyes locking in. Cyan salutes Duke, head bowed and hand over his chest. He says, "I learn something new every day, Father." Duke gazes at Cyan and responds, "Is that so? I thought you'd want to return immediately." Duke senses that Cyan enjoys being on the battlefield. Duke looks at Cyan sharply, a smile playing on his lips. He tells Cyan that he is incredibly proud of him for enduring this far in the war. Cyan's eyes widen, mouth agape. His expression reflects disbelief at Duke's recent words. Duke invited Cyan to his tent in the early hours to discuss their next plan. Duke and Yulin departed, leaving Cyan behind. Cyan remained silent, seemingly unable to believe that his father, Duke, had suddenly shown such kindness toward him. And of course he accepted Duke's invitation. On that night, in a valley illuminated by the shimmering starlight, the sky was bright. A large worm-like monster swiftly struck a massive rock, causing a tremendous explosion as the rock shattered into pieces. It turned out that Cyan was there, evading the attacks of this large worm. The creature was none other than the deathworm. The deathworm emerging from the ground had an enormous body, contrasting sharply with Cyan's small form. Cyan's strikes against the deathworm seemed ineffective. He also wondered why the deathworm appeared in that location, as it typically only surfaced in the remote valleys. Then, the red sword, none other than Karam, held by Cyan, began to glow and speak. Karam offered advice because Cyan was starting to struggle against the deathworm. Cyan turned toward the sword and said, "Allowing you to take over? Do you think I don't know your intentions?" Karam immediately refuted, explaining that it only wanted to borrow Cyan's body briefly, as it had sworn not to consume him forever. The deathworm's massive red-skinned body began healing the wounds from Cyan's strikes. Slowly, the injuries started fading. The wounds inflicted by Cyan were not too deep, allowing the deathworm to easily heal itself. Brownish smoke emanated from the wound, sealing it shut. Karam considered Cyan's attacks meaningless without utilizing its full power. With a sharp gaze, Cyan felt that Karam's words held some truth. It didn't feel like a month had passed since Cyan was on the front lines of the battlefield. Many monsters had fallen by their hand, and countless drops of blood had been consumed from various creatures, whether wolf-shaped or bird-shaped. Yet despite all this, Cyan still felt inadequate to face the deathworm. The deathworm, massive with layered jaws and numerous teeth, poised to strike. Cyan had no choice but to heed Karam's request. Finally, Cyan acquiesced to Karam's plea. Their sword began to emit a red glow, its power gathering. Karam and Cyan began to merge. Uttering the mantra, "Thick fog ninth form demonic sword," Cyan's body became fully possessed by Karam. Their head and hands blazed like red fire as they launched rapid attacks against the deathworm, resulting in numerous slashes. The immense deathworm felt the extraordinary pain from those strikes. Karam's power within Cyan was formidable. Cyan, now resembling a fiery-headed monster, soared through the moonlit darkness. Then Cyan uttered their ultimate mantra, "Fog Sword 8, fluttering petals." After speaking those words, Cyan landed on the ground, and the point of their strike emitted a dazzling light. The massive mouth of the deathworm split in two. Next, the light from Karam's sword power cleaved the deathworm's body into 8 pieces. Cyan, under Karam's influence, had been waiting for the worm to shatter into fragments. The following night, Duke inspected the carcass of the slain wolf. In the dark night, Duke, accompanied by Yulin and several soldiers, carried torches to illuminate their way as they examined the wolf's remains. They suspected that the wolf monster had been slaughtered by a demon. After closely inspecting the creature's body, Duke ordered the disposal of the monster carcasses by burning them. Duke felt a sense of familiarity with the sword marks that had slashed the wolf's neck. Furrowing his brow, Duke pondered the feeling of déjà vu from this event. Behind a large rock, Yulin, who held a torch, called out to Duke. Duke approached his guard. Yulin raised the torch to reveal an object at the far end of the dimly lit area. They approached the object. When illuminated by the torch, it turned out to be the carcass of a deathworm, already split into several pieces. They wondered who could have dispatched the deathworm to such an extent. A thought crossed Duke's mind about a certain organization, although it remained unclear which organization he was referring to. Shifting the narrative, let's return to the time of the demonic sword manifestation. It appears that Karam possessed Cyan's body to access their true power. However, Karam could fully control Cyan's body if Cyan allowed it. Cyan, now lying in their tent, had just regained consciousness. Their face was covered in sweat. Feeling incredibly weak even against a single monster, Cyan knew they had to rely on Karam. And not forgetting, they were grateful for having consumed the blood of demonic beasts. Later, Cyan sat down, holding his head. His entire body ached. However, without the aid of demonic beast blood elixirs, it was certain that Cyan's body wouldn't have endured until now. As Cyan still felt the pain in his head and continued to hold it, Karam stated that he understood the situation Cyan was currently experiencing. Cyan immediately turned toward Karam. Karam manifested as a purple fireball and said, "Your appearance may be that of a child, but your demeanor and way of speaking are entirely adult-like." Karam regarded Cyan as highly skilled in controlling him, even though Cyan had only recently started using his power. Not only that, Karam added that Cyan was remarkably familiar with all the locations in Lamia Valley. With the sword techniques mastered by Cyan, it was as if he had trained for 30 years and was on par with a mist. With a wide smile, Karam was convinced that Cyan was a regressor. Cyan, with an indifferent expression, seemed reluctant to entertain Karam. Karam was very upset because Cyan did not explain in detail what had actually happened in his previous life. Karam showed a serious face. He stated that this Cyan is hard to beat, but according to his estimate, the one who could defeat Cyan is the owner of the Duran Dark Sword. Karam also added that there are two possibilities that could result in Cyan being killed, namely Cyan losing in a duel or losing due to betrayal. Then, Karam was already able to ascertain if Cyan lost due to betrayal. Hearing Karam's words, Cyan questioned why Karam could think like that. With a wide smile, Karam once again explained that when Cyan saw his holy sword, Cyan felt very unhappy. Staring at each other, Karam warned that if Cyan ever wavered or lost, Karam was ready to devour Cyan's body. Cyan was annoyed by Karam's words. Karam was immediately hit by Cyan and thrown towards a pile of books. However, on one side, Cyan felt happy because Karam had not changed and was still the same as in Cyan's previous life. Cyan, who had just woken up, saw several soldiers patrolling outside the tent with alert faces as he opened his tent curtain. Cyan began to step forward from the tent. He felt confused about the slightly different situation, and it was seen from the expressions of the soldiers encountered by Cyan. Suddenly, Emily appeared in the midst of the soldiers with a worried face, ensuring Cyan's condition was okay. Because Cyan felt the situation was unusual, he asked Emily what was really happening. With a worried face, Emily explained to Cyan that there was a high-level monster corpse found near the entrance of the valley. Cyan was startled and shocked to hear the information from Emily. Cyan immediately suspected that what Emily was talking about was the deathworm that had been killed. Cyan then asked if there was any other information besides what Emily had explained earlier. When Emily wanted to tell Cyan, Emily immediately fell silent because there was a man wearing armor appearing from behind Cyan, and the man called Cyan. The man was Yulin. Yulin then saluted Cyan and asked Cyan to face his father, Duke Vert. Cyan looked at Yulin with worry, feeling that he had made a mistake because he did not clean up the monster corpses he had killed. Cyan did not expect that the soldiers would find the monster corpses. Especially the number of monsters he had killed was not small, and it would raise suspicion. An annoyed expression immediately appeared on Cyan's face. He felt that the neatly arranged plan had failed. Then Cyan immediately met Duke in his tent and immediately greeted Lord Duke. Duke immediately invited Cyan to sit, but Duke's facial expression with his sharp gaze indicated that there was something important to tell Cyan. However, Cyan felt that his father already knew that the monsters were killed by his actions. Cyan was confused about how to make an excuse so that Duke did not know Cyan's real actions about the monster corpses. They then sat at the table that Duke usually used to discuss war strategies. Duke immediately asked Cyan about what Cyan had done last night. With a nervous face and a stuttering voice, Cyan answered that he went to bed early due to exhaustion. In Duke's mind, Cyan's answer about going to bed early felt odd. Moreover, Duke saw the sword-cut marks on the monster's corpse that were very similar to the sword technique Cyan had. However, Duke thought that his suspicion towards Cyan might be too excessive, because how could a child as small as Cyan kill a deathworm? Duke then eliminated his suspicion towards Cyan. He felt that the monster corpses were the work of an assassin organization named Mist. Cyan was shocked to hear Duke's words about the secret organization named Mist. Then, Duke said that the secret organization has existed since long ago, and Duke doesn't know what the real purpose of the organization is. Duke added that the secret organization has killed many nobles, and their reason is for purification. Not stopping there, Duke also added that they are very famous because they always leave black fog. They were last seen about 300 years ago. However, looking at the deathworm corpse, Duke saw the presence of black fog. He is very sure if the secret organization Mist has risen again. Just for information, black fog is a trace left by Eru, the god of darkness. He is the god worshipped by Mist, and also the source of Mist's power. Duke's facial expression is very serious, and believes that Mist is the one who has killed Deathworm and Demonic Beast. Cyan was amazed and shocked by Duke, because Duke accurately guessed who the perpetrator was, even though the organization was last seen 3 centuries ago. Duke also warned Cyan to be careful, because Duke does not know the reason for their appearance. Duke will investigate and will report to the Empire. Cyan's feelings are very happy because Cyan feels that with this incident, Duke will trust him. Duke ended his conversation with Cyan, but in his mind, Duke felt that Cyan, who is still young, could not possibly be involved with the organization. Before Cyan left, Duke informed Cyan that an important person would be visiting their camp, namely Emperor Ushif. Duke also wanted to ask for Cyan's help to escort Emperor Ushif's daughter named Aaron Severus. Cyan was very surprised when Duke asked for his help. Not long after, the sound of a trumpet blown by a soldier was heard, indicating that the Emperor had arrived at the entrance of the camp. Led by Duke, everyone saluted the arrival of the Emperor. The Emperor, in his grand attire and still sitting on a horse, was very pleased with the welcome he received. Feeling that he had been friends with Duke for a long time, the Emperor immediately asked Duke to stand up. Then, the Emperor looked towards Cyan. With his head still bowed and his knee bent, Cyan saluted the Emperor. The Emperor was very proud of Duke. The Emperor felt that Duke had a special child compared to other children of Cyan's age. Cyan, who is still young, is already in a dangerous environment. Cyan was very moved because he could meet the Emperor directly at this time. In Cyan's previous life, he could only see the Emperor from behind a window when the Emperor visited his house. After the introduction between Cyan and the Emperor also wanted to introduce someone. From behind the Emperor, a soldier was seen preparing to open the door of his horse carriage. A woman with red shoes was seen descending from the horse carriage. Dressed in the typical attire of the Emperor's daughter, the woman in red introduced herself as Aaron Severus. Cyan already knew the background of Aaron Severus, the fifth daughter of the Emperor, because in his previous life they had met at the academy. Initially, Cyan refused Duke's request to escort Aaron, but Duke forced Cyan to escort Princess Aaron and accompany her while in the camp. Duke also emphasized that there is no harm in getting acquainted with the princess from the imperial family, and forced Cyan so that they could be friends. Cyan looked at Duke with a cynical gaze. In his heart he muttered that he would not be able to be friends with Aaron. But on the other hand, Cyan understood what Duke expected, that is, for Cyan and Aaron to be close, like Duke with the Emperor. Because of the future that Cyan had experienced before he returned to the past, Cyan felt that he would never be able to be friends with Princess Aaron. The Emperor and Duke, along with the soldiers, walked around the Lamea Valley to see the area. Princess Aaron and Cyan were behind the group. Then Princess Aaron fell silent and asked why the color of the river was red. Then, Cyan explained that the river was the Blood River. Cyan also explained that the flow of water flowed throughout the valley, but the reason why the water was red was very complicated. Cyan began to explain why the valley's water was red. It is said that an old or injured demonic beast that can no longer fight with other creatures will plunge into the Blood River on its own. The amount of mana left in the body of the demonic beast corpse causes the water to turn red. "So it's all because of the corpses and body fluids of the demonic beast?" said Princess Aaron with an annoyed look on her face. "Correct," said Cyan. Cyan also jokingly asked Princess Aaron not to go into the water. Then they were startled because there was a light that passed over them. It was a flare that was being fired. The yellow flare shot came from post 3 and it signaled that a demonic beast was attacking. Princess Aaron immediately felt worried because of the presence of the demonic beast here. Her facial expression could not lie if she was very scared. With a loud shout, Duke ordered some of the soldiers to guard the Emperor and other soldiers to head to the third post in the west. But the Emperor did not just want to take shelter. The Emperor wanted to join the fight against the demonic beast with Duke. The Emperor immediately drew his sword and was ready to fight the monster. With the worry in his mind and unable to resist the Emperor's command, Duke agreed to what the Emperor wanted. The Emperor immediately took over the command. He ordered the soldiers to join the raid on the demonic beast. He also asked the soldiers to kill the demonic beast until the raid was over. Duke then shouted at Cyan for Cyan to also go to the third post. Without thinking long, Cyan agreed to his father's command. As Cyan was preparing to go to the third post, Princess Aaron wanted to go with Cyan. Cyan forbade her to go, but Princess Aaron insisted on her stance. Not wanting to endanger Princess Aaron, Cyan called Yulin to help him escort Princess Arin to the camp. Princess Arin was very angry at Cyan because she could not accept Cyan's treatment that forbade her to face the demonic beast. Then, Cyan approached Princess Arin. Cyan stared sharply at Princess Arin. The pupils of his eyes that enlarged turned red. Cyan began to assert that if Princess Arin still insisted on joining, then many knights would die, and Princess Arin's safety would not be guaranteed. Princess Arin cried in fear because she saw Cyan, who was very scary, scolding her. Then Cyan left with 2 soldiers to catch up with the Emperor's group in facing the demonic beast. Meanwhile, at the defense fortress of the 3rd post, the soldiers began to be overwhelmed by facing the large and horned demonic beast, which looked like a jelly monster. The monster had already eaten several soldiers in the fortress. Duke, who had arrived at the 3rd post, shouted loudly, ordering the soldiers to attack the monster while also protecting the Emperor. Duke wanted all the monsters to be destroyed. The soldiers in full armor began to run to immediately attack the monster. Thank you so much for watching and spending time with us today. We greatly appreciate your support and enthusiasm. Have a good rest and see you in the next episode. Keep your spirits up, and don't forget to always smile. See you soon.